Hello, welcome to this edition of the Masterlete Podcast. I am Wendy Lutter, your host today, and we will be talking to Ann Hobbie. Ann is a trainer, an author, an educator. She works at Defining You Pilates Studio in St. Paul. She teaches all sorts of great things. She also is a private trainer and works from her home. She specializes and has a certification for older people and aging. We're going to talk about all sorts of things today. Tips, nutrition, purpose. So thanks for joining us. Well, welcome to the Masterlete Podcast, Ann Hobbie. It is delightful to have you here talking about your journey to movement.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
So tell us a little bit about your early life and moving, because I know that you became a trainer, you're an educator, way later.
Way later. If you'd ever asked me in my youth, or especially in my teenage years, would you be athletic as an adult? I don't think I would have called it. No way. I was a very active kid, very, very active. But I remember the day we had a great neighborhood and just tons of space and wonderful kids. And we played a lot of, kickball and capture the flag and a game we called Murder that was perfectly benign, but lots of running. And I remember distinctly at about age 12, a moment where during a capture the flag game where I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to run.
What did you not?
It was the running. It was
do?
Just like suddenly, I think what happens to girls when they, develop is like suddenly your hormones are different, your body's changing, your biomechanics are changing. And suddenly movement was a lot harder for me. I went from being the fastest girl in my 5th and 6th grade class to going out for track in 7th grade and having it just be drudgery and not having any adult even notice me on the team. I think that was part of it too.
Fun. Yeah.
So competitive sports just wasn't really my thing. And I was active. I went to a summer camp where you had to really you'd be able to carry a food pack and carry a canoe and
absolutely. And that's a different kind of movement, but you still have to be really strong to do that.
So I managed to pull it out once a year for camp. And then, I don't know, just as an adult, I kind of realized that it's for your health. You should probably get moving. So, mostly after my kids were born, I got motivated to go to the gym.
I remember, correct me if I'm wrong, but you had a lot of back pain. And when I knew you back then, I remember that you weren't moving a lot and that was part of what really motivated you. And you got really into Pilates. Isn't that right?
I did. I went to a spine surgeon. I was taking 2,400 milligrams of ibuprofen a day.
Oh, my goodness.
For 5 years. And I decided right around
how many, is that like 6
I can't
pills
even remember.
or something?
12 maybe.
Oh my gosh.
It was a lot.
How was your stomach?
It was a lot. It was 12. My stomach handled it okay, but I just knew that it wasn't good for me. So I went to the spine surgeon and he said, I was probably I'd had 2 kids by then and it had been a problem for years. But I had 2 kids and he said, I'm not going to say you're old, but you're not young anymore, and you need Pilates. This is normal degeneration of the spine. Age 33.
Wow.
Normal degeneration of the spine. And I started doing Pilates, and that's kind of where my teaching career, I was teaching part-time in a lot of different capacities, and it was through this Pilates teacher. By the way, the Pilates absolutely worked. I'm not on ibuprofen anymore. And it helped.
And you haven't been
and I
for
haven't been, no.
20-some years,
just
right?
Occasionally when you get, something that flares up. But the owner of the studio I went to said, something else happened at the same time. My dad got Parkinson's. And so with his Parkinson's diagnosis and my sort of ramped up fitness, because I was doing more than just Pilates. I was doing a lot of HIIT, and I started teaching HIIT and spinning led me to outdoor cycling and all these things that I never really expected, but definitely a circuitous route from the Y to the Pilates gym to, to cycling and to cross-country skiing. the owner of the studio said, you could really be a teacher to older people around fitness.
And why do you think it was the older people that she honed in on?
She knew that I wanted to do something to help my dad.
Okay.
And so that's when I got my certification to be a trainer. And I have clients of all ages, but I have a special affinity with and got an additional credential for working with aging populations, which, by the way, is anybody over 50. We're all aging constantly, but older,
And there's a special certification
for that.
Tell me what that is and what does that entail?
Well, it's courses more on the physiology of what happens to your body as you age, and the concept of biological age and your health age, which is something that's completely germane to Masterlete, I know.
Yes.
They don't necessarily correspond. You can really benefit your health through exercise, and that was the goal of the courses that I took. Dealing with people who have things like metabolic syndrome and high cholesterol and heart disease. And one of the things I love about this age is who walks through the door and what they walk through the door with.
In terms of training for you.
People who have you have your whole story and your life story in your body, right? You've got your injuries from track and field when you were in high school, and now you're 80. I have a client who talks about his track and field days all the time, and his limitations they're informed by the history of how he used his body.
Isn't that true? So it's like it's all this muscle memory of things that we
absolutely
don't think about at all when we're in our 20s and
right.
training maybe not very smart
exactly.
and doing things to our bodies, and then all of a sudden it's your 50s or your 60s or whatever, and you're like,
right.
okay, wow, this
right.
is coming back, and
right.
it's bugging me.
Right.
So so the biological age versus the metabolic age versus sort of that longevity is a really interesting concept and subject that we're looking at more and more. That whole idea of that health span. How do I live better, longer, and talk to me about how do you talk to clients about that? Is that something that you bring up?
Yeah, for sure I do. But it is interesting how they come to you once a week and they want everything to change. So we talk a lot about, I kind of make these menus especially with my clients at the studio where I work, of, what is it you like to do? And what days of the week do you like to do it? And then just sort of putting together a schedule of like, okay, well, let's pick from this menu of things you've identified you're willing to do or you like to do for movement. And then let's make a plan for you that's got a balance between cardiovascular things and resistance training and balance work and stretching and agility, and all that.
And it's smart to start with what do you like to do, because I think that this whole idea, even of calling it a workout, is not,
interesting.
It's
I never
work.
thought about it.
And so why are we making
Right.
it work if there's
Right.
some of this stuff that's really fun?
I want it to be for people like it was when I was, because it's become that way for me, like it was when I was a little kid. That kid before playing the capture the flag and kickball and tennis and swimming, and not really thinking about it being a chore.
Right. You're just moving and having fun. You're
fun.
not counting your calories. You're not counting your
Exactly.
breaths. You're not
Yeah.
looking at your HRV and
Yeah.
all these things. You're just having fun.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
by the way, you happen to move.
Yeah. And you asked about how do I approach that with clients. I think I try to keep circling back to what it is that their goal is, and then
What are some of those goals when you see people in their 40s, 50s, and 60s versus a 20-year-old?
A lot of times it's weight loss, which is beyond my scope of practice. I mean, I know something about nutrition. It's part of the training, but they warn you 100 times till Sunday not to try to help people with their diet without being licensed. And there's a lot. We've never had more nutritional information and supplements, and I mean, people are getting bombarded.
Yes.
And I'm very much talk to my clients about eating whole foods, and that's trying to get your nutrition not from a bottle but from food.
Yeah, because we're hearing all these things about fueling, and so much of it feels like everybody's trying to sell you a supplement.
Yes.
And
You would think we're the most malnourished country, and that we are in a drought constantly because people carry around their gigantic water bottles. And,
Right.
It's just funny. And then we have to have our electrolytes. Even my kids, my son, when he works out, he's got his little electrolyte packet. And I don't mean to make fun of it, but you can also eat something healthy beforehand, and you can eat afterwards.
What is your favorite go-to after a workout?
Well, I really like, I try to get some protein, especially if I'm doing resistance training they say within a half an hour of your finishing. And I have a harder time getting my protein, but I also recently was diagnosed with osteopenia. So I'm trying to get some of that protein through dairy, like yogurt and kefir and things like that.
So do you do a snack after you work out that's a protein shake type, or do you do
I don't.
whole food?
I do whole foods, and I usually try to make it kind of a mini meal. It might be, whole grain toast and an egg and some avocado, or it might be, I do start my day with a bowl of oatmeal, and I put nuts in my oatmeal, and I put oat milk in my oatmeal, and because there's some protein in there. And I mean, it's not a high protein breakfast, but it's a jumpstart breakfast, and it's good for lowering cholesterol. So
because especially women who are over 40 and 50 and postmenopausal,
Yes.
I'm reading all this stuff about how important protein is, and that we're not getting enough
no,
protein.
we're not, and I'm not getting enough. I know I'm not getting enough, and I preach it all the
diets.
time, and I'm still not getting enough. So yeah. That's
So
something I'm working
what's
on.
when you talk to clients about protein, what do you tell them to do? Do you have any tips of how to try to increase that?
Well, it usually ends up being supplementing with protein powder, putting it into things that they're already eating, but not underestimating the protein that's in Greek yogurt, and trying to get them to eat some nuts and seeds. And
I remember you sent me a text a while ago about tuna. And you
do.
said,
I eat
let's not-
several cans
yeah,
of tuna a week. I
Let's
do.
not forget about
22
tuna.
or 21 grams of tuna of protein per can, and not very high in calories. So yeah.
So fuel is something that you talk to your clients about.
fuel, and I talk to them about just being planful about their movement.
Yeah.
So yeah,
And
but I love planning around their issues. I mean, I love the challenge of working with the shoulder that's been repaired, or the knee that's been repaired, or I have a client who's 91 who, when we started, was walking with a cane and is no longer walking with a cane.
Wow. And what do you attribute that to?
Just she's willing to work the plan that I gave her. She's doing what I told her to do.
And is that weights? Is that
It's
movement?
weights twice a week. It's one time with me, one time on her own, and it's her movement. It's walking. She's walking stairs in her building now. Yeah. So
let's talk about weights a little bit, because that's another thing that we hear a lot about is weightlifting as we are aging.
Yeah.
Why is that something we should be doing?
Well, you can gain lean muscle mass into your 90s. They've studied this. Women who lift, and men who lift weights to exhaustion increase their lean muscle mass, and that lean muscle mass helps. It helps you metabolically. It helps you ward off things like metabolic syndrome and high blood pressure, and it makes you stronger. It helps your joints function. So if you don't have any muscle in your legs and you have a bad knee, that knee's going to get worse. So you don't have any scaffolding. You can think of it that way. I thought about Pilates as scaffolding helping me develop scaffolding for my degenerating spine, and your muscles are your scaffolding to deal with your degenerating bones. And we get more adipose tissue as we age, which is fat. It's easier to store fat. So it's harder to make that. I mean, it's really, you have to be purposeful about strength training if you want to improve that. It's also vital to your bone health. So that's
Definitely.
something,
which I don't think a lot of people maybe understand, especially people who maybe younger people now, or people who are really astute to reading
You want
things,
to stress the bone. So the stress comes from the muscles pulling on the bone.
Which is kind of counterintuitive, isn't it? When you say you want to stress the bone.
You want to stress the bone. And there's a lot of evidence now that jumping is a really important part of that. So, for example, if you're a swimmer and a cyclist and a cross-country skier, or a downhill skier for that matter, you're not really stressing your bones.
There's not that impact.
You're just
at all.
stressing your joints, let me be clear. But there's not that impact. So you have to be purposeful about finding ways to get that impact. And I try to incorporate that into the classes I teach and the sessions I do with my clients.
So
I don't
what could you
start
do?
someone in their 80s jumping. We're not jumping. My 91-year-old and I are not jumping. And I'm not jumping with my mom. But if I get you soon enough, we will incorporate jumping.
What's soon enough?
Soon enough, easily in your 40s and 50s. I have perimenopausal clients right now. I'm really trying to get ahead of it with and incorporate more jumping into their work.
So if somebody's listening and they are thinking, okay, I would love to start to incorporate this, what would you suggest?
For jumping, or
let's say they're perimenopausal and they're
so
thinking, I want to get ahead of this.
Just trying to you want to lift weights to exhaustion. So the reason that you'll hear people say, well, I only want to lift small weights. I don't want to bulk up. The bulking up is not real.
It's a myth. Yes.
It's a myth for women. And
it takes a lot to bulk up.
It takes a lot. We don't have any, when you're perimenopausal and menopausal, you don't really have that much testosterone left. So you don't need to worry about that. But you need to work the muscles to exhaustion. And you need to increase weight as you go, because you're going to get stronger. You're breaking down muscle tissue, and then it's knitting itself back together stronger.
Which is a good thing.
You want to do that. You want to stress the muscle without tearing it or pulling it. But at the mitochondrial level and the cellular level, you want those muscle fibers to be challenged. So the reason that we use, heavy weight is good for the bones, but heavy weight also just helps you get more exercises in. So if you can go really slowly, and you can do a really high volume, which is like, I'm going to do 100 bicep curls with 3-pound weights. Well, it's going to take you way too long to do that. So
I don't have all day. I don't have all day to do that.
And there are exceptions to all of these. I mean, my mom is now she's 91, and I've created, sadly, repetitive stress in her shoulder. And so and some muscular stuff. So we have to pare it back.
Because she's lifting too much?
She's lifting too much. So, yes, she's, when she's 91 and she's doing bicep curls with 10-pound weights. And I have people in my classes who are a lot younger who don't choose 10s when they come to my classes. So I'm always trying to use my mom as an example. But the point being, you really want to try to do lower volume with higher weight, but to that point of exhaustion. And then once you do several sets to exhaustion, you know that the next time you can try increasing your weight.
So if I wanted to start jumping,
if you want to
give
start
me a
jumping. Well, I ended up buying a box because it's the safest way for me to jump. But you could, if you had a place where you could jump from a stair onto a sidewalk, so your front steps are a good example. You want to get an 8-inch falls to get the right ground force reaction for your body to benefit. And they say to jump down and then do a rebound jump and then repeat that 10 of those per time 3 times a week.
So I'm
getting all this from Jocelyn Wittstein, who is I follow her on Instagram. She is a orthopedic surgeon out of Johns Hopkins who teaches about women and bone health. So she's wonderful to follow. I'm going to put in a plug for her. I messaged her one day with a question about working with clients who had certain repetitive stress, and 5 minutes later she messaged me back.
Well, there you go.
I know.
It's a real person out there wanting to help people
good stuff
with bone health.
And so that's one thing I'd recommend, just jumping down instead of thinking about jumping up.
Interesting.
On something, yeah.
And it's these little things that I think are tips that we can start to collect that don't take 3 hours.
No.
It takes a few minutes a day that can actually really improve our bone health, which then can mean less falls, which can then mean a better health span. So it really doesn't have to be these massive things. It can be little small things that you take into your daily life.
I'm trying to incorporate that myself in stretching. Stretching is really beneficial to you, and I don't do it enough because I don't stop.
And I don't do it either.
Go. And my husband is a really good role model, and I'm trying to incorporate that. There was a study, it's pretty old now, that in which a control group and a treatment group did the same workout, the same exact workout, same amount of weight, same resistance, and over 6 weeks, and the treatment group stretched for 5 minutes at the end of the workout, and they gained 20% more lean muscle mass.
Wow.
From having stretched. No, that's just one study.
Still, that's
yeah.
That says a lot.
It's compelling. Yeah.
So I want to go back to when you were working out at the Y, and I remember you telling me a story that someone said to you.
Yeah, it kind of blew me away.
What is your plan? And
I was working out many times a week, and a trainer had actually approached me and said, this was right after my son William was born, and he's like, you should try weightlifting. I mean, so he was born in 2000, so it was 2001 or 2002, and I had him put me on a plan, and I worked. He did the whole, he evaluated my lean muscle mass, my biomass, and then 6 weeks later, after working the plan, did it again. And I'm not even going to share those numbers because I'll never see them again, but they were really impressive. And it wasn't that hard to work that plan. And at that time I had, and I was just doing it because I thought it was a healthy thing to do. There was a woman there who was clearly very fit, and I chatted with her one day, and she does a lot of triathlons, and she said, well, I'm approaching you because I wondered if you'd want to be my triathlon partner, like be a partner in training with me, and I'm wondering what your goals are. And I was just flummoxed. As a non-competitive person who works out, I don't do Ks. Wendy knows this about me. I don't want to compete. I don't want your skis on my skis. I don't want your wet body in the lake next to my wet body. I don't want to have to deal with the crowd. I don't want to have to, muscle my way to the front. I'll do the course, but I'm going to do it by myself. Thank you very much. Or with a friend the next day. So anyway, she
love
said,
that.
What are your goals? And I said, to be healthy. Like, I didn't know what she meant. And I think she didn't know what to do with that. So, yeah.
But I think that's so important. And that's why I love that we're talking to you today, because there is a whole range of people who you can be this super elite athlete and be interested in your health span and interested in how to improve
increase your
sleep,
performance,
movement, all that kind of stuff. And you can just be somebody who wants to be healthy.
Yes.
And you're such a great example of, you could do the Ks, you could do all the Ks,
I could do all the Ks.
but you don't want to do the Ks, and that is great too. And I also remember that you and I had a conversation a while back, and you said to me that you said, well, I'm not an athlete.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, but do you think you're athletic? And you said, yeah, I think I'm athletic, but I don't feel like an athlete.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that.
Well, since we talked, I looked it up, and the word athlete comes from the Greek athlein, which is prize. So it comes from, an athlete has a competitive, but, of course, in the secondary definitions of it, they're like, anyone who, wants to do movement.
But they feel different.
They do. To be an athlete is one thing, and to be athletic is another. And I didn't really consider myself. Somebody else referred to me as an athlete at one point, and I was just blown away by that. And then a mutual friend of ours, Connie, who you had on the podcast, invited me one day to run because she was getting ready for a competition, and she said, I need to run with somebody who can pace me at an 8-minute mile, because I don't go that fast, and an 8-minute mile is not like super fast, but I was so honored that she wanted to run with me because she thought I was fast, and I thought, well, okay,
different perceptions, right?
Maybe I am an athlete. Maybe I'm an athlete. Yeah.
So, but I do love the fact that you are very fit and you're very conscientious of sleep, movement, fuel, all these things, and show that you don't have to call yourself an athlete to be healthy. And I think that being able to then train with folks who maybe haven't been moving and come to it at 40 or 50 or 60 and say, okay, I realize I've got to do this now.
Yeah.
can you
It's
share?
exciting.
Yeah, it's really
Yeah.
exciting. Can you share some of your stories of client? You shared one about the client success, but what have you learned from your older clients, and what do you think? What wisdom can you share with the rest of us that you feel like your clients have
Yeah,
told you?
well, that same client shared something recently with me that's very profound that kind of hit me over the head. And I said, well, what is it? How do you age successfully? What do you think the key is to aging successfully?
very
Because this person is still
big question.
publishing. She's an academic, and she's still publishing, and she's still traveling, and she's still, just doing a lot. And she thought about it for a minute, and she said, well, I think it's solving problems. I think that's the key to aging well, is solving problems.
That you continue to have a problem to solve?
That you continue to have a problem to solve. And so it goes beyond, obviously, your fitness. It is important to be able to solve your movement problems. And that's really where I help people, is solving their movement problems. But, when you can't move because you've got constraints, or you're traveling all the time, or what do you do when you go on a trip, and how do you make a plane trip bearable for a 75-year-old?
But solving problems is a really good way to look at it.
It's a really good way to, and it's a good reminder to me, and from them and from her, to be doing things that challenge you, challenge your brain.
Well, one of the things that we've been talking about with Masterlete is purpose, and how important purpose is.
I think that's the same.
And that reminds me of that, because when you think about all these other pieces, it really lines up with sort of that purpose being at the top. Can you talk about purpose and how you see that with your clients, and where movement might fit in with that as we age?
Yes, because I think if you have purpose, it helps your mental health enough to want to help your physical health. And that's the triangle I see with my clients. When they don't have purpose, I would argue that they don't really feel the need to move much, because it's sort of giving up on your brain at the same time that you're giving up on your body. That they're connected.
It's so huge. I feel like when I have days where it's hard to get out of bed, and a lot of it ties back to like, okay, those big questions of like, what's my purpose? What am I doing? What's next?
What's next?
All of those things.
Yeah.
So that problem solving is really wise advice to think about. How do I continue to solve problems?
Exactly.
And how does that help with the mental clarity, the curiosity, all of that's so important to longevity?
Exactly. I worry a little bit about that myself, as I'm looking at, like, am I going to start cutting back my client load a little bit in order for us to travel more, because my husband is in the moment retired. And I see him as a person who constantly finds new purpose and constantly solves problems. And he's inspiring me. And so I have clients who are better at it than other clients, but I would definitely say that in retirement, finding purpose is essential.
Yeah.
And they teach me that because of the ways that they are finding purpose, and some of them the way they're not finding purpose.
Yeah. And how so much of in the society in the United States, our purpose is tied to work and our job.
Yes.
And so how do and that's not necessarily a good thing. And so how, when we think about that health span and that versus that lifespan, do we think about purpose not tied to work? Because I don't think anybody is ever on their deathbed and says, oh, I wish I would have worked more.
Right.
So how do you figure out your purpose as we age and tie it to like movement and goals and all those other things? Right.
Well, and for a lot of these clients I'm talking about, their goals definitely drive their fitness, because they want to be able to hold grandchildren.
Yeah.
I have a client who was getting really sore holding she has 2 grandbabies, and so we needed to strengthen her mid back. Her mid traps were weak, and so
that's a great goal. To hold your grandbabies,
to garden. If you're, a lot of the things that people enjoy doing in retirement are movement. You're walking, you're hiking, you're going to Europe. You have to be able to walk around a city.
And if you've been sitting at a desk for 40 years, that's something that all of a sudden is harder, a lot harder to do.
Yeah.
What is your advice for somebody who wants to move more or is starting to move, who's coming into this and is like, okay, I wanna have a great health span. I want to be healthy as the goal, so I can do all these other things, so that I can find my purpose or work towards my purpose. What, from a trainer perspective, would be your advice, wise wisdom that you would offer?
I think I'd go back to that list, making a list of things you enjoy doing, activities you enjoy doing, and then maybe some activities or movement that you're curious about. So you've got a combination of stuff that you're willing to kind of choose among and make a plan around doing, commit to, movement you can commit to, and then movement that where you might be introduced to something. Somebody might be listening to this and say, I've never actually tried Pilates. I wonder what she's talking about. Or trying a dance class with your partner. Jeff will never watch this, but I fully intend to buy us dance lessons. I mean, dance lessons. If we took a tango class, you're getting bone density work there. There's a lot of stomping and dancing it's fun.
I think there's a fun and joy component of it that's really important.
It's true. And that's why you have to go to the things that you know you already like doing. Not that you're competent at. Not that you're,
but that you don't hate, so that
you don't hate,
so that you don't regret or go into a situation with dread every day, saying that you have to do it. But figuring out that fun part or that's something you enjoy,
and then the curious part, and then making a plan, and maybe it means finding a gym where they offer classes that include weight training, so that you can either get an introduction somehow or get a plan for yourself.
Because it can be really scary if you've never done this.
Weight training is scary to people because there's so much, especially with free weights, form matters so much. And you don't want to get injured. But on the other hand, you also just have to be brave and start and try.
And there are lots of ways that you don't have to spend hundreds or thousands of dollars to do it. Like you said, there's lots of gym.
There's a lot of
and group fitness.
Group fitness. There's more than ever online.
Yeah.
And there are plenty of people who will show you online on YouTube how to do a Romanian deadlift properly or how to do a squat properly. So I would say start small. If you're lifting weights, if you want to do pick 2 leg exercises, 2 upper body, and a couple of back and a core, and maybe do 5 or 6 exercises every other day or every third day for 6 weeks as you start. Start small. Okay. And I don't mean that that's the only exercise you're going to do for those 6 weeks, but to count as your resistance training.
Because you have to start somewhere and feel successful.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
And you'll be amazed at how it changes your body really quickly.
Yeah.
Really quick. You can lose it quickly, which is the sad part if you get injured or sick. But, we've all been there, right? You get a cold and it knocks you out for 2 weeks and you go back to exercise and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm dying.
Did I ever do this before?
Did I ever do
hard.
this before? But it comes back really quickly.
So what is your favorite thing about being a trainer?
Well, problem solving around who the body that walks in the door
and
the mind, but the body that, the issues, I call them issues with your tissues. I like to deal with the issues with your tissues. So, and then the person is, the relationship is always really fun too.
And for you, what is your favorite thing about movement?
I love the way it makes me feel afterwards. I'm addicted to the
endorphins. Are pretty.
Yeah. I have to say, it just, and even when it's not endorphins, even if I just go for a walk, the way it changes your mind.
Yeah, the mental clarity. For me, it's priceless.
And I didn't coin this either, but movement is medicine. Movement is medicine.
And if you don't move,
you might
have to take medicine.
Yes, you might. You might get really sad. But that that your mind is connected to your body, and they need each other.
Yeah.
Your body needs your mind to get it moving.
There's all that
your
synergy.
Mind needs your body
Yeah.
to feel better.
Is there anything you want to leave us with? Any thoughts in terms of movement or advice or any other stories that we haven't touched on that you want to make sure we talk about?
Oh, dear. I don't know.
Favorite movement. What's your favorite way to move? If you could do anything, what would it be?
Cross-country skiing. Because it encompasses everything.
And
but I don't like the cold, so I'm stuck there. Yeah.
Well, you could have the beautiful Bluebird Day when it's
Bluebird
25.
And I was telling someone yesterday, I said, if our winters would just be in the 20s and snowy, I would just be
a happy camper.
Happy all the time.
Well, I wish you a perfect Bluebird Day for skiing in the near future. And thank you so much for coming and talking to us and sharing all your wisdom.
You are welcome. It's a pleasure to be here.
All right. Thank you so much.